Taemin sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien faces around the massive table. The crystal walls of Station Nexus caught the light from distant stars and threw rainbow patterns across the room. He had been sitting in this same chair for 3 months now, listening to the same insults and watching the same dismissive gestures from creatures who thought they ruled the galaxy. The Vorthak Chancellor. Kexthar leaned back in his floating seat, his forearms crossed in what humans had learned was a sign of complete boredom. His scaled face showed no respect as he spoke in the clicking language that the translation device turned into cold words. The human delegation continues to waste our time with these unreasonable demands. Your species has been in space for barely 2 centuries. We have ruled these systems for over 10,000 years. Taemin kept his face calm, even though anger burned in his chest. He had heard this speech many times before. The aliens loved to remind humans how young and weak they were. They loved to talk about their ancient civilizations and their great fleets. They never missed a chance to make humans feel small. The Zephyrian Prime Minister Velona made a sound that the translator called laughter, but it sounded more like static electricity. Her silver skin rippled with patterns that meant amusement in her culture. Perhaps the humans would be happier if we gave them a few mining colonies in the Outer Rim. Something suitable for a species that still uses chemical rockets. More laughter came from around the table. The hegemony representative, a creature that looked like a walking tree made of metal, tapped his fingers against the table in a rhythm. That meant agreement. Even the smaller delegations from the Confederacy and the Alliance joined in the mockery. Taemin had learned to read their expressions over the long months of talks. He knew what each gesture meant, what each sound represented. He understood their languages better than they knew. This was exactly the problem. Ambassador Taemin, Chancellor Kexthar said, using the human's name like it was something dirty. Your Earth coalition has made demands that show a complete lack of understanding about galactic politics. You want 50 systems for expansion. You want equal representation on the council. You want your own trade routes. He paused and looked around the table at his allies. These things must be earned over millennia, not demanded by children who just learned to crawl between the stars. The human ambassador reached for his water glass and took a slow sip. The liquid was recycled from the station's systems and tasted like metal, but it gave him time to think. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. He had studied every alien culture, learned their histories, understood their fears and desires. He had believed that knowledge and patience would be enough to secure humanity's place among the stars. He had been wrong. The proposed treaty, Velona continued, sliding a datapad across the smooth table surface, offers your species 12 systems for colonization. These are mining worlds with minimal strategic value. In exchange, Earth will provide raw materials and labor for council projects. Your military will be limited to system defense forces only. No ships larger than frigate class. No weapons capable of planetary bombardment. Taemin looked down at the pad without picking it up. 12 systems. After 3 months of negotiation, after countless hours of explaining humanity's needs and potential contributions, they offered 12 barren rocks in space. The galaxy contained over 1 million habitable worlds, and they wanted to give humans 12 of the worst ones. Furthermore, the hegemony representative added, his voice like grinding metal, all human expansion beyond these designated systems must be approved by the Council. All human technology must be shared with Council scientists. All human military operations must be coordinated through Council command. The translator made it sound polite, but Taemin heard the real meaning. They wanted to turn humanity into servants. They wanted humans to dig rocks from dead planets while the great alien civilizations enjoyed the best worlds and the richest trade routes. They wanted to keep humanity weak and dependent forever. Counselor Relthak, a creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a tank of liquid, pulsed with colors that showed excitement. The humans should feel grateful for such generous terms. Many species have waited centuries for even a single world to call their own. We offer 12, plus the protection of our fleets and the wisdom of our guidance. Grateful, Taemin repeated quietly, tasting the word. Yes, grateful, Chancellor, Kexthar said, his scales shifting to show satisfaction. Your species showed promise when you first appeared in our space. Your crude ships and simple weapons reminded us of our own early days among the stars. But promise must be tempered with reality. Humans are not ready for true galactic citizenship. The Chancellor stood up from his floating chair and walked around the table until he stood behind Taemin's seat. The human could smell the alien's breath, like sulfur and ozone mixed together. Your defensive capabilities are primitive at best. Your ships rely on kinetic weapons that our shields easily deflect. Your armor is made from simple metal alloys that our energy weapons cut through like paper. A single council fleet could devastate your entire home system in a matter of hours. Other aliens around the table made sounds of agreement. They had all studied human military capabilities during the 3 months of talks. They knew exactly how outgunned and outnumbered humanity was in any potential conflict. The knowledge made them confident, almost playful in their dismissal of human ambitions. "The galaxy is dangerous," Velona said, her silver skin now showing patterns that meant pity. "There are threats beyond your current understanding. Ancient machines that destroyed civilizations greater than yours. Hostile species from other galaxies that view all organic life as resources to be consumed. The Council exists to maintain order and protect the younger species from these dangers." Taemin listened to every word and filed it away in his memory. He had heard hints of these greater threats before, but the aliens rarely spoke openly about them. Today they seemed more willing to share, perhaps because they felt so superior to the humans sitting across from them. "The Council has maintained peace for over 8,000 years, the hegemony representative said with pride. "We have explored and cataloged millions of worlds. We have built trade networks that span entire galaxy arms. We have defeated threats that would have consumed your entire species without leaving a trace. And now," Chancellor Kexathar said, returning to his seat, "we offer to extend that protection to humanity. All we ask in return is that you accept your proper place in the galactic order, mine the worlds we give you, build the ships we approve, fight the battles we direct. In time, perhaps in a few thousand years, your species may earn the right to true independence." The silence stretched across the crystal chamber. Outside the transparent walls, ships from a dozen different species moved between the docking bays of Station Nexus. Traders and diplomats and soldiers from across the galaxy went about their business, secure in the knowledge that the Council maintained order and stability. Taemin stood up slowly from his chair. He gathered the data pads and documents that he had brought to every session for 3 months. He placed them in his diplomatic case with careful, precise movements. The aliens watched him with expressions ranging from boredom to mild curiosity. "Ambassador," Chancellor Kexathar said with false concern, "surely you are not leaving before we conclude our business. The treaty requires only your signature to become official." Taemin closed his case with a soft click that seemed to echo in the sudden quiet of the chamber. He looked around the table at each alien face, memorizing their expressions of superiority and dismissal. Then he spoke in a voice that was perfectly calm and completely cold. "The United Earth Coalition withdraws from these negotiations. We will pursue our own path forward." The silence that followed was different from the one before. This was the silence of shock and disbelief. Chancellor Kexathar's scales shifted through colors that meant confusion and anger. Velona's silver skin stopped moving entirely, freezing in patterns that showed complete surprise. "You cannot be serious," the hegemony representative said, his metal fingers scraping against the table surface. "Without Council protection, your species will be destroyed by the first major threat you encounter." Taemin picked up his case and walked toward the chamber door. He did not look back as he spoke his final words to the Galactic Council. "We will see." The door closed behind him with a whisper of displaced air. In the chamber, alien voices rose in discussion and debate. Some laughed at human foolishness. Others worried about the precedent of a species rejecting Council authority. All of them agreed that humanity had just made a terrible mistake. Taemin walked through the corridors of Station Nexus toward the human docking bay. His steps were steady and sure. As he reached his shuttle, he pulled out a communication device and entered a code that only 12 people in the entire galaxy knew. The message was simple. "Protocol 7 is authorized. Begin Phase 1. He sent the signal toward Earth and stepped aboard his ship. The galaxy had no idea what was about to begin. 6 months passed like a held breath across the galaxy. The Galactic Council continued their business as usual, expanding into new systems and enforcing their ancient laws. They spoke of the humans occasionally, usually with amusement. Some wondered if Earth had learned its lesson and would come crawling back to accept the original treaty terms. Others suggested that humanity had simply retreated to their small corner of space to focus on internal development. All of them were wrong. In the deep asteroid fields beyond Pluto, Fleet Admiral Jiwoo floated in the command center of a station that did not officially exist. The facility had been built inside a hollowed-out asteroid over the course of 30 years, hidden from any sensors that might detect it. Around her, thousands of technicians and engineers worked around the clock to complete the largest military project in human history. "Status report," Jiwoo said into her headset, watching the displays that showed construction progress across the entire solar system. "Shipyard 7 reports completion of the final dreadnought hull," came the reply from Commander Beho, her second-in-command. "Drive systems are being installed now. Weapons integration will begin tomorrow." Jiwoo nodded and pulled up the master construction list on her tablet. 237 capital ships, 894 cruisers. Over 3,000 smaller vessels ranging from destroyers to stealth scouts. All of them built in hidden facilities scattered throughout human space, all of them invisible to alien detection methods. The Ghost Fleet project had been approved in secret 40 years ago, shortly after humanity's first contact with the galactic community. While diplomats talked and negotiated, military planners had quietly prepared for the possibility that peace might not be enough to secure humanity's future. They had studied every alien ship design, analyzed every weapons system, and planned countermeasures for every known threat. "Admiral," another voice crackled through her headset. "Dr. Hyojin is requesting permission to begin final testing of the quantum disruption array." Jiwoo smiled. Dr. Hyojin was perhaps the most brilliant scientist humanity had ever produced, and her research had given them the edge they needed to face the galaxy's established powers. While alien civilizations relied heavily on energy shields and plasma weapons, humans had focused on kinetic projectiles and physical armor. It had seemed like a backward approach to most observers. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. "Permission granted," Jiwoo said. "Tell the doctor she has full authorization for live testing. Use the captured Vorthak frigate as the target." The captured ship had been acquired through careful planning and patient intelligence work. 2 years ago, pirates had attacked a council convoy near the edge of human space. Human vessels had responded to the distress call and driven off the attackers, but not before one Vorthak frigate had suffered critical damage. The crew had been rescued and returned to council space with full honors, but the ship itself had been declared a total loss and abandoned, except it had not been abandoned. Human salvage teams had quietly retrieved the wreck and brought it to a classified research facility on Titan. For 2 years, Dr. Hyojin and her team had taken the ship apart piece by piece, studying every component and understanding every system. "Testing begins in 30 seconds, Dr. Hyojin's voice came through the communication system. She was aboard the experimental ship Sejong, humanity's first vessel equipped with the new quantum disruption technology. The target frigate hung motionless in space 3,000 kilometers away, its shields at full power and its systems running on automatic. "Firing in 10 seconds, the doctor announced. "All stations monitor and record." Jiwoo watched the main display screen as a barely visible beam of distorted space reached out from the Sejong toward the alien vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Vorthak ship's shields flickered once and collapsed completely. "Direct hit," reported the sensor operator. "Target shields are down and all energy systems are showing massive fluctuations." Dr. Hyojin's excited voice came through the speakers. "Admiral, the quantum disruption field is working exactly as predicted. We can completely neutralize their shield technology and cause significant damage to their power systems. A full-scale array should be able to affect multiple targets simultaneously." Jiwoo allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The aliens had dismissed human technology as primitive, but they had never seen anything like this. Their energy-based defenses would be useless against weapons that attack the quantum foundations of matter itself. "Excellent work, Doctor," Jiwoo said. "Begin installation of the arrays on all capital ships immediately. I want every dreadnought and battlecruiser equipped within the month." While the Ghost Fleet prepared for war, other humans worked quietly in the shadows throughout Council space. Captain Sung Ho guided his stealth reconnaissance ship through the outer system of the hegemony homeworld, his passive sensors recording everything they detected. The ship was completely invisible to alien technology, using a combination of advanced materials and quantum field manipulation that bent electromagnetic radiation around the hull. Third Military Shipyard confirmed, reported his sensor officer, Lieutenant Min Ki. Estimated construction capacity of approximately 50 capital ships per year. Current inventory shows 37 completed vessels and 15 under construction. Sung Ho marked the location on his tactical map and moved on to the next target. Over the past 6 months, his ship and others like it had mapped every major military installation in Council space. They knew the locations of shipyards, supply depots, communication relays, and fleet anchorages. When the time came to strike, humanity would have perfect intelligence on their enemies. "Captain," Minky said suddenly, "I'm detecting a massive energy signature from the planet's surface. It appears to be some kind of defensive installation." Sung Ho studied the sensor readings with interest. The signature was unlike anything in human databases, suggesting technology that the Council had never revealed to other species. He filed the information away for future analysis and continued his mission. On Earth, Min Seo sat in her office deep beneath the Swiss Alps and coordinated the most extensive intelligence operation in human history. As Director of Human Intelligence Services, she oversaw a network of agents that had been quietly building for decades. Traders, researchers, diplomats, and even tourists had all played their part in gathering information about the galactic community. "Report from Agent Jae Yun on Vorthak Prime," her assistant informed her. "He has confirmed the location of their central command facility and obtained detailed schematics of their communication network." Min Seo smiled. Jae-yun ran a small trading company that specialized in rare minerals, giving him access to restricted areas throughout Vorthak space. Like hundreds of other human agents, he appeared to be nothing more than a civilian businessman trying to make a profit from galactic trade. "What about Agent Suhee's mission?" Min Seo asked. "She reports success," came the reply. "Complete technical. Specifications for Zephyrian shield generators have been obtained and transmitted. She maintains her cover as a xenobiology researcher. The intelligence flowed in from across the galaxy. Ship movements, military capabilities, political tensions between different Council species, economic weaknesses, and technological limitations. Every piece of information was analyzed and cataloged, building a complete picture of the galactic community that the aliens themselves did not possess." "Director," another aide approached with a data pad, "we have received confirmation that all sleeper assets are in position and ready for activation." Min Seo nodded. The sleeper network had taken 20 years to establish, placing agents in key positions throughout Council space. When the time came, they would be able to gather real-time intelligence and even conduct sabotage operations if necessary. Dr. Hee-jin returned to her laboratory on Titan after the successful weapons test, her mind already working on the next phase of development. The quantum disruption technology was only one part of humanity's secret arsenal. In secure facilities throughout the solar system, other research teams worked on projects that would revolutionize space warfare. "Status on the armor development?" she asked her chief engineer, Dr. Won Jae. "Final testing is complete," he reported with satisfaction. "The new composite provides over 300% improvement in kinetic impact resistance compared to standard Council armor. Energy weapon. Effectiveness is reduced by approximately 70%. Hee-jin studied the test results with growing excitement. While alien civilizations had focused on energy shields for defense, humans had developed physical armor that could withstand incredible punishment. Combined with their quantum disruption weapons, human ships would be nearly invulnerable to conventional Council technology. "Begin immediate production," she ordered. "I want enough armor plating to retrofit the entire fleet within 60 days. In the outer asteroid belt, mining operations that appeared to be extracting raw materials for peaceful purposes were actually gathering resources for the war effort. Automated factories built inside carefully selected asteroids produced weapons, ammunition, and ship components around the clock. The production capacity was staggering, far exceeding anything the Council believed humans possessed. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had lasted for 12 hours, and tempers were running high. Chancellor Kexthar paced behind his floating chair, his four arms gesturing wildly as he spoke to the assembled representatives. The great, crystal chamber of Station Nexus echoed with angry voices in a dozen different languages. The humans have ignored every attempt at communication, Velona reported, her silver skin showing patterns of frustration. Our diplomatic vessels have been denied entry to their space. Our trade missions have been turned away. They act as if they have something to hide. Because they do, growled Admiral Zekthor of the Hegemony Fleet. The massive creature stood over 3 meters tall, his metallic skin scarred from countless battles. Intelligence reports suggest they are building up their military forces beyond the treaty limitations. This cannot be allowed to continue. Councillor Relthak pulsed with colors that showed agreement. The smaller species are watching to see how we respond to human defiance. If we allow this challenge to our authority to go unanswered, others may follow their example. Chancellor Kexthar stopped pacing and turned to face the assembled council. Then we are in agreement. The humans must be reminded of their place in the galactic order. A show of force will bring them back to the negotiating table with a more reasonable attitude. Admiral Zekthor stepped forward, his massive bulk making the floor vibrate with each movement. My fleet is ready to deploy immediately. 200 ships should be more than sufficient to cow these primitives into submission. We will jump into their home system and demand they accept the original treaty terms. No bloodshed unless absolutely necessary, Velona cautioned. We want to demonstrate our power, not trigger a war that could destabilize the entire region. The Admiral made a sound like grinding metal that the translation system interpreted as laughter. Prime Minister, human weapons cannot even penetrate our shields. Their kinetic projectiles are useless against modern defensive technology. This will be over in minutes. Chancellor Kexthar activated the communication system that connected the chamber to Council military commands throughout the galaxy. Admiral Zekthor, you have authorization to proceed with Operation Reminder. Jump to the Sol system and demand immediate human surrender. If they refuse, you are authorized to destroy their orbital installations to demonstrate our resolve. It will be my pleasure. Admiral Zekthor replied, his scarred face showing anticipation for the coming battle. 6 hours later, the combined Council fleet assembled at the jump point just outside human space. 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy formed up in perfect formation, their energy shields glowing with deadly power. Ships from 7 different species flew together under Council authority, presenting a united front that had never been defeated in over a century of warfare. Admiral Zekthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion, and reviewed the tactical situation one final time. His intelligence officers had provided detailed information about human defensive capabilities, and the assessment was laughably optimistic for the Council forces. Confirmed human fleet strength in the Sol system, reported his tactical officer. 47 ships of various classes, mostly destroyers and cruisers. No dreadnoughts detected. Their largest vessel appears to be a crude battleship of approximately 800 meters length. Primitive. Zekthor rumbled with satisfaction. Our smallest frigates are more advanced than their flagship. Signal all ships to prepare for jump. The Council fleet activated their faster-than-light drives simultaneously, tearing holes in space-time that allowed them to cross vast distances in the blink of an eye. The journey to Sol took less than 30 seconds, and when they emerged from jump space, Admiral Zekthor expected to find a handful of human ships desperately trying to organize some pathetic defense. Instead, he found Admiral Jae Sung waiting for them. The human fleet hung in perfect formation between the Council forces and Earth, their dark hulls reflecting the light of Sol like polished obsidian. 47 ships faced 200, and yet there was something unsettling about the way they held their position. No panic, no desperate maneuvering, just calm readiness. Admiral Jae Sung of the United Earth Coalition, came a transmission from the largest human vessel. You have entered human space without permission and in violation of interstellar law. State your intentions immediately. Admiral Zekthor laughed, the sound echoing through his bridge. Human, I am Admiral Zekthor, commanding the Council enforcement. Fleet, you are outnumbered 4-1 by ships far superior to your primitive vessels. Surrender immediately and prepare to accept Council authority. Negative, came the calm reply. You have exactly 60 seconds to begin your withdrawal, or we will remove you. The alien admiral's laughter stopped abruptly. Around him, his bridge crew made sounds of disbelief and amusement. The humans were threatening them? 47 crewed ships against the might of the entire Council fleet? Human, Zekthor said, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. You clearly do not understand the situation. Observe the power you face and despair. He gestured to his weapons officer. Target their flagship with a demonstration shot, low power only. I want them to see how useless their defenses are. The Eternal Dominion's main plasma cannons swiveled toward the human battleship and fired a beam of concentrated energy that could melt through a kilometer of solid rock. The brilliant lance of destruction struck the human vessel directly amidships, where it should have burned through the hull and crippled the ship. Instead, the energy beam splashed harmlessly against the human vessel's armor, dispersing in a shower of sparks that quickly faded to nothing. Impossible, breathed the tactical officer. Admiral, their armor is absorbing our plasma weapons. The energy is being dissipated through some kind of quantum lattice structure. Admiral Zekthor stared at the undamaged human ship in growing disbelief. His most powerful weapons had produced no visible effect at all. How is this possible? Admiral Zekthor, came Admiral Jae-sung's voice again, still perfectly calm. Your 60 seconds have expired. Since you have opened fire on human vessels, we are now in a state of war. All Council ships are hereby designated as hostile targets. All ships, Zekthor bellowed into his communication system. Open fire immediately. Destroy them all. 200 Council warships unleash their weapons. Simultaneously, plasma cannons, particle beams, quantum torpedoes, and exotic energy weapons that could destroy planets filled the space between the fleets with deadly light. The barrage was enough to annihilate an entire star system, and it struck the human formation with the force of a collapsing star. When the light faded, all 47 human ships remained exactly where they had been, completely undamaged. Admiral Jae-sung's voice came across the communication channel. You have just demonstrated the obsolescence of energy-based weapon systems. Allow us to show you the effectiveness of our approach. The human ships moved with precision. That shocked the Council observers. They accelerated to attack speed in seconds, their advanced drives propelling them forward at velocities that should have torn apart any known spacecraft. Instead of energy weapons, they opened fire with kinetic projectiles that moved at significant fractions of light speed. The first salvo struck the Council fleet before their computers could even register the incoming threat. Solid projectiles tore through energy shields like they were not there, punching through alien hulls with devastating effect. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before erupted in explosions of atmosphere and debris. Shields are useless, screamed the tactical officer aboard the Eternal Dominion. The projectiles are moving too fast for our deflectors to track. Hull breaches on 17 ships. We have lost the cruiser's brilliant victory and stellar might completely. Admiral Zekthor watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically destroyed by weapons he had dismissed as primitive. The humans were not using advanced energy systems or exotic physics. They were simply throwing rocks at incredible speeds, and those rocks were tearing his ships apart. All ships, evasive maneuvers, he ordered desperately. Target their ships with everything we have. But the Council vessels were too slow and their weapons too ineffective. Human ships danced between plasma beams with impossible agility, their armor shrugging off direct hits that should have vaporized them. In return, their kinetic weapons found their targets with ruthless precision. Admiral, came a panicked transmission from the cruiser. Endless glory. We are taking massive damage. Our weapons have no effect. Request immediate reinforcements. Admiral, another voice called out. The destroyer squadron has been completely eliminated. The humans are targeting our capital ships now. Zekthor watched his tactical display as red icons representing destroyed ships multiplied across the screen. In less than 10 minutes, he had lost over 50 vessels without inflicting a single casualty on the human fleet. Admiral Jae-sung, he transmitted on the emergency frequency. I request immediate ceasefire. We can negotiate. Negative, came the reply. You came here to demonstrate Council power. We are demonstrating human power. The lesson continues until your fleet is eliminated. The battle continued for 7 more minutes. News of the Sol massacre spread through galactic civilization like a plague. On every Council world, emergency sessions convened as leaders struggled to understand what had happened to their invincible fleet. The few survivors from Admiral Zekthor's force told stories that seemed impossible, describing human weapons that ignored energy shields and armor that absorbed plasma fire without damage. Chancellor Kexthar stood before the full council assembly on Station Nexus, his 4 arms trembling. With barely controlled rage, the great crystal chamber that had once echoed with confident discussions of human subjugation now buzzed with fearful whispers and desperate planning. 200 ships, he repeated for the 3rd time, his voice cracking with disbelief. 200 of our finest vessels, destroyed in 17 minutes by 47 human ships. How is this possible? Prime Minister Velona's silver skin rippled with patterns that showed deep concern. Our intelligence reports have been completely wrong about human capabilities. The technology they displayed in the Sol system is decades ahead of anything in our databases. Centuries ahead, corrected General Korthal of the Hegemony military forces. The massive creature's metallic skin showed deep gouges where he had clawed himself in frustration. Our weapons were completely ineffective. Their projectile systems penetrated our shields as if they did not exist. Councillor Relthak pulsed with colors that indicated panic. We must determine how long they have possessed this technology. If they have been hiding these capabilities for years, what else might they have prepared? The answer to that question came sooner than any of them expected. As the council debated in their crystal chamber, Captain Sujin led her stealth fleet in simultaneous strikes against 7 major shipyards throughout council space. The human vessels appeared without warning, their advanced cloaking technology rendering them invisible until they opened fire. Urgent transmission from Vorthak Prime, an aide announced, rushing into the chamber with a communication device. The orbital shipyards are under attack by unknown vessels. Chancellor Kexthar activated the communication system with desperate haste. Admiral Veltark, report your status immediately. Chancellor, came the panicked voice of the Vorthak fleet commander. Human ships have appeared throughout our system. They are destroying our construction facilities with incredible precision. Our defensive platforms cannot track them. How many ships? Kexthar demanded. We cannot determine their numbers. They appear, strike, and vanish again. Our entire shipbuilding capacity will be eliminated within hours. Similar reports flooded in from across council space. The Zephyrian military yards at Stelvara, the Hegemony construction facilities at Morthak, the Alliance shipyards at Ketelnor, 7 star systems, 7 coordinated attacks, 7 critical losses to council military production. This is a coordinated campaign, General Korthal realized with growing horror. They have been planning this for months, possibly years. How did our intelligence services miss such extensive preparation? The truth was beginning to dawn on the council leaders. Humanity had not been hiding in their corner of space licking their wounds. They had been preparing for war on a scale that the galactic community had never imagined possible. Emergency transmission from the Confederacy homeworld, another aide, announced. President Dalmor requests immediate council assistance. The communication system crackled to life, revealing the desperate voice of one of their key allies. Council forces, this is President Dalmor. Human vessels have appeared in our system and are broadcasting surrender demands. They claim to represent something called the United Earth Coalition. Chancellor Kexthar felt his blood freeze in his veins. The humans were not content with defensive victories. They were taking the war directly to council territory. President Da Yun's voice came through the communication system with perfect clarity, speaking directly to the galactic community for the first time since the failed negotiations. Her words were calm and measured, but they carried implications that terrified every listening alien. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice reaching every communication network simultaneously. 6 months ago, humanity sought peaceful integration into galactic civilization. We offered cooperation, mutual benefit, and friendship to all species willing to treat us as equals. The transmission was being broadcast on every frequency, impossible to block or jam. Human technology had infiltrated galactic communication, networks so completely that they could override any attempt at censorship. Instead, we were met with contempt, dismissal, and threats. The Galactic Council offered us slavery disguised as protection, demanding that we accept permanent subjugation in exchange for a handful of worthless worlds. On Vorthak Prime, Chancellor Kexthar listened with growing dread as the human leader continued her address. Around him, his advisors made sounds of distress as they realized the implications of what they were hearing. We rejected their terms and were threatened with military action. Today, a council fleet entered human space with the intention of forcing our surrender through superior firepower. That fleet no longer exists. Dayun paused to let that information settle before continuing. Humanity sought peace, but we prepared for war. We offered cooperation, but we planned for conflict. We hoped for friendship, but we built the tools necessary to ensure our survival. The transmission included tactical recordings from the Battle of Seoul, showing council ships being systematically destroyed by human weapons. The footage was devastating to council morale, providing undeniable proof that their supposedly invincible fleet had been utterly helpless against human technology. The galaxy will now witness the consequences of the council's decision to treat humanity as inferior. We are not conquerors seeking to enslave other species. We are defenders of our own freedom, and we will not allow that freedom to be compromised. As Dayun spoke, reports continued to arrive from across council space. Human fleets were appearing at strategic locations throughout the galaxy, targeting military installations with surgical precision. They avoided civilian areas and focused entirely on council military assets, but their effectiveness was terrifying. To the species who serve the council through fear rather than choice, Dayun continued, we offer an alternative. Humanity seeks partners, not servants. We will welcome any civilization that chooses to join us in building a new galactic order based on mutual respect and equality. The message was clear, and its effects were immediate. Within hours of Dayun's broadcast, representatives from dozens of smaller species began requesting private meetings with human diplomatic missions. The carefully maintained unity of the council was beginning to crack under pressure. Ambassador Yun Wu found himself overwhelmed with requests for private conferences at the human embassy on Nexus Station. Species that had ignored human diplomatic overtures for months were now desperate to establish friendly relations with what was clearly becoming the dominant power in the galaxy. Ambassador, his aide reported breathlessly, we have received formal requests for meetings from the Talvani Republic, the Free Worlds Alliance, the Centauri Federation, and 18 other governments. They all want to discuss potential cooperation agreements. Yunwu smiled grimly as he reviewed the list. These were the same species whose representatives had sat silently during the failed peace negotiations, unwilling to risk council displeasure by supporting human proposals. Now they were eager to distance themselves from their former masters. Schedule meetings with all of them, he instructed. Priority goes to species with strategic resources or favorable territorial positions. The galaxy is reshaping itself, and we want to ensure that process benefits humanity's friends. On the council worlds, panic was setting in as the true scope of human preparation became clear. Intelligence reports revealed the existence of hidden shipyards throughout human space, production facilities that had been building military vessels for decades without detection. The Ghost Fleet project was revealed in all its terrifying scope, showing that humanity possessed not dozens, but thousands of advanced warships. How did they hide this from us? Prime Minister Velona demanded during an emergency intelligence briefing. Our spy networks monitor all major industrial activity in their space. They used asteroid mining operations as cover, reported Intelligence Director Yextal, his shame evident in every word. What we thought were resource extraction facilities were actually ship construction sites. They have been building their fleet right under our sensors for over 30 years. General Korthal studied the intelligence reports with professional interest despite his growing fear. Their technology is not just advanced, it is specifically designed to counter our defensive systems. This was not random development. They studied our capabilities and created weapons specifically intended to defeat Council forces. The implications were staggering. Humanity had spent decades analyzing alien technology, understanding Council weaknesses, and developing countermeasures for every known threat. While the Council had grown complacent in their superiority, humans had been preparing for the day when peaceful coexistence would prove impossible. We need to determine their full military capacity, Chancellor Kexathar said desperately. How? Many ships do they actually possess? What are their true territorial ambitions? 1 year after Ambassador Taemin had walked out of the peace negotiations, he returned to Station Nexus. The massive space station looked the same from the outside, its crystal spires catching starlight and throwing rainbows across the docking bays. But everything else had changed completely. Human ships now patrolled the space around the station, their dark hulls a constant reminder of the new galactic reality. The flags of 7 different council species had been lowered from the station's communication towers, replaced by the simple blue and white banner of the United Earth Coalition. Guards in human military uniforms stood at every checkpoint, polite but unmistakably in control. Taemin walked through corridors that had once echoed with alien voices discussing humanity's inferior status. Now those same passages buzzed with conversations in dozens of languages as species from across the galaxy sought audiences with human representatives. The mighty had fallen, and the former outcasts had become the power brokers of galactic civilization. The crystal chamber where the original negotiations had failed was now configured differently. Instead of a single massive table where council species could look down on supplicants, there were smaller meeting areas arranged in a circle. The symbolism was deliberate. Humanity would not simply replace the council's hierarchy with their own version of the same system. Chancellor Kexthar sat in what had once been his place of honor, but his floating chair was no longer elevated above the others. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides, and his scales had lost their vibrant coloring. The war had lasted only 8 months, but it had aged him decades. "Ambassador Taemin," he said quietly as the human entered the chamber, "thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Taemin took his seat across from the former council leader, noting how the alien's voice had lost its arrogant edge. The man who had once dismissed humanity as children playing among the stars now spoke with the careful tone of someone who understood his own powerlessness. "Chancellor," Taemin replied with neutral politeness, "President Da-Un felt it was important to give you the opportunity to negotiate surrender terms directly rather than simply imposing them unilaterally." The word surrender hung in the air like a physical presence. Around the chamber, other former council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Prime Minister Velona's silver skin showed patterns of deep humiliation. General Korthal's metallic fingers scraped against his chair as he struggled to control his emotions. "The terms you transmitted are harsh," Velona said carefully, "but we understand that we are in no position to negotiate. Our fleets are destroyed, our shipyards eliminated, and our member species have largely abandoned the alliance." It was true. The systematic campaign led by Admiral Wan Shik and General He Young had been devastatingly effective. Human forces had struck at every major military installation in Council space, using their superior technology and detailed intelligence to cripple enemy resistance before it could organize. The quantum disruption weapons developed by Dr. Hai Jin had made Council defenses completely obsolete. "The Confederacy signed a separate peace agreement last month," Councillor Relthak added, his colors showing resignation. "The Alliance and the Free Systems have opened direct negotiations with your coalition. We represent only our core homeworlds." "Now!" Taemin nodded acknowledgement. The rapid collapse of the Council Alliance had surprised even human planners. Once their military superiority was demonstrated, species that had been forced into the Council structure for protection began seeking better alternatives. The human offer of partnership rather than domination had proven attractive to civilizations tired of being treated as second-class citizens. "The United Earth Coalition is prepared to be generous to former enemies who demonstrate genuine commitment to peaceful coexistence," Taemin said, pulling out a data pad with the final treaty terms. "These conditions reflect President Da-Un's desire to build a stable galactic order rather than simply extracting revenge." Chancellor Kexathar accepted the pad with trembling hands and began reading. The terms were indeed harsh, but they could have been much worse. The core council worlds would retain limited autonomy under human oversight. Military forces would be restricted to system defense only. War reparations would be paid over 50 years rather than demanded immediately. Article 15, Kexthar, read aloud, "Establishment of democratic governments on all former council worlds, with elections supervised by coalition observers." He looked up at Taemin with something approaching curiosity. "You truly intend to allow us to choose our own leaders?" "The coalition has no interest in micromanaging your internal affairs," Taemin replied. "We simply want to ensure that your governments represent the will of your people rather than the preferences of an hereditary elite." It was a revolutionary concept in galactic politics. For thousands of years, most species had been ruled by aristocratic classes or military hierarchies that treated ordinary citizens as resources to be managed. The idea that common people should choose their own leaders was spreading throughout human-controlled space with explosive results. "What about the other provisions?" General Korthal asked, his voice carefully controlled. "The technology sharing agreements, the trade restrictions, the territorial limitations?" Taemin consulted his notes before responding. "Human scientists will work with your researchers to develop improved agricultural and medical technologies. Trade will flow freely between coalition members, but military applications will be strictly controlled. As for territory, you will retain your current systems, but expansion will require coalition approval. The restrictions were designed to prevent another military buildup while encouraging peaceful development. Species that demonstrated good behavior would gradually earn more autonomy and access to advanced human technology. Those that caused problems would find their freedoms reduced." "There is one more matter," Taemin said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "During our previous negotiations, several council members made references to greater threats facing galactic civilization, ancient machines, hostile species from other galaxies, dangers beyond our current understanding. We require full disclosure of these threats and access to all relevant intelligence." The former council leaders exchanged glances before Chancellor Kexthar spoke. "The threats are real, Ambassador. In the Outer Rim territories, automated defense systems have been awakening after millennia of dormancy. We believe they were built by a species that disappeared long before any of our civilizations achieved spaceflight. The machines do not distinguish between different organic species," Velona added. "They view all biological life as a contamination to be eliminated. Our combined fleets have encountered them several times over the past century, and the losses have been severe." General Korthal leaned forward in his chair. "That is why the Council existed, Ambassador. Not to oppress younger species, but to maintain sufficient military strength to defend organic life against these ancient threats. Without unified leadership, the galaxy will be vulnerable when they finally emerge in force." Taemin studied the alien faces around the table, reading their expressions carefully. They seemed genuinely concerned, rather than attempting some elaborate deception. The implications were sobering. Humanity had just dismantled the galaxy's primary defense system, while potentially greater threats lurked in the darkness between stars. "All relevant data will be transferred to Coalition intelligence services immediately," he decided. "Our military analysts will review the threat assessments and develop appropriate countermeasures." "Ambassador," Chancellor Kexthar said urgently, "your technology is impressive, but these machines have had millions of years to perfect their systems. They learn from every encounter, adapting their defenses to counter new weapons. The quantum disruption technology that devastated our fleets may prove useless against enemies that can rewrite their fundamental physics in real time." The warning was sobering, but Taemin maintained his confident demeanor. Humanity had surprised the galaxy once by revealing hidden capabilities that exceeded all expectations. They had spent decades preparing for conflict with known enemies while simultaneously researching threats that might exist beyond current knowledge. "We will address those challenges when they arise," he said calmly. "For now, our immediate concern is establishing stable governance throughout former council space." The meeting continued for several more hours as they worked through the details of surrender and transition. When it finally ended, the former council leaders filed out of the chamber with the careful dignity of defeated enemies who had been offered honorable terms. Taemin remained behind, looking out through the crystal walls at the human ships patrolling nearby space. Admiral Jiwoo's fleet had grown even larger over the past year, incorporating new technologies and tactical innovations that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible. His communication device chimed with an incoming priority message. The text was brief but alarming. "Unknown signals detected in the Andromeda approach vector. Analysis suggests artificial origin and hostile intent. Estimated arrival time in local galaxy, 18 months. Taemin smiled grimly as he read the report. The galaxy had needed new leadership, and humanity had stepped forward to provide it.